All right. I think this time it's going to work. I think it's going to work. Inshallah, it will work. Um, I don't know what is going on, but the thing everybody likes to discuss is internet connectivity issues. Um, well, Happy New Year and everything. You know, I have streamed, I guess, already in the new year, but this is the first Monday, and the first Monday always feels significant to me. Assalamu alaikum, Sharif. I hope you had a good. I mean, I assume you have a festive season around this time. Christmas probably not huge in most Muslim countries, but most cultures do have like winter festivals or middle of the year. Yep, it's feels like it could be a big year politically. Midterms in America are going to be, I think, pretty important, which is unfortunate. Um, but it is what it is. Anyway, I hope you're having a good new year. We're going to be doing some more of this video that I spent an hour on a few days ago and made it 8 minutes in. So that's not a great sign about how smoothly this is going to go. But it's got to be, I mean, it doesn't have to be done. It's going to be done. Oh, that's fun. PlayStation 5 is a nice piece of hardware. I assume. I don't have one. Um, and I've really never played any of the Grand Theft Auto games. But I know people are very excited for the new one. So, you know, I'm sure it'll be good. Uh, I played maybe four, a decent amount, with not playing the story at all. Um, yeah, I don't know. For whatever reason, it never grabbed my attention. I didn't have access to it for a long time, and then when I finally did play it a little bit, I was kind of not that interested in playing the game. The decaf is just okay. I mean, it's okay enough that I'm drinking it black without complaint. Well, without much complaint. But it is not anywhere near as good as some of the other stuff I have. Alright. Well. Yeah. That's fun. Fun fantasy. Not as fun in real life, but it's fun to pretend. Okay, where were we? There's something about the Germans. And then I got distracted. Well, that doesn't help me very much.
Knowing what happened when the German people in the Third Reich took back their money system.
God. Okay, I think this is where I was going to quote this.
When the German people, right? and knowing what happened when the German people in the communism, they were anti-communist. The Germans were anti-communist.
Oh yeah, this is what I was talking about. Because anti-communism and anti-Semitism are very commonly tied to be the same thing, right? It's not like you're anti-communist and you're anti-Semitic. You are anti-communist because you're anti-Semitic, and that's part of what you believe the Jews are responsible for, right? Like, you can be one but not both, but a whole lot of the time it's both.
All right? And knowing what happened when the German people in the Third Reich took back their money system.
Jesus.
Their money. And they kicked...
Again, I stop this every like 10 seconds to comment, but like, you don't need to praise the Third Reich. You know, there's not a really a good reason to praise the Third Reich. Even if they did do some things like economically that worked, which most economists will tell you it didn't really. They were in big financial trouble. But it's like you could find a different example to credit for some economic or societal advancement, right? You could do that. It doesn't have to be the Third Reich. If you are if you are bringing up the Third Reich in a positive way, it's because you want to, right? It's because you are thinking that that was a good thing. And it was not. Not to be too bold, but it was not a good thing. So it's telling that you would bring it up and praise it specifically, right? Again, like, he's not trying to hide the ball, okay? This is useful, in my eyes, this is useful as instruction and, like, preparation. When you see somebody being pretty obvious about it, it makes it easy to sort of explain where they're coming from. Jim's not really concerned with hiding that he hates Jewish people. But a lot of people do try to be a lot sneakier about it. And so it's useful to have an example, I think, where you don't really have to work that hard to figure it out. It helps prepare you.
The money mongers of the Jews out.
Yeah.
Then prosperity took off. And
Not true.
Governmental regulations were taken off the back of the businesses. And
hey, who else is really anti-regulation? Jim thinks no regulation is good. You know who else thinks no regulation is good? Republicans. Capitalists also. Which you can be both, but definitely Republicans are big fans of not regulating businesses. And, like, again, there were issues with the German economy that Jim is just lying about or doesn't know about. It's not even like a hidden thing. But
Germany went from the worst depressed European nation within 7 years to the greatest industrial nation in the world. Because
guess what country he's talking about, Alex? You have one guess. 7 years went from being depressed to the greatest economic powerhouse in the world. I'm not excited. Incorrect. Germany, the Third Reich. This video is about Germany, so this is going to be great. I am not looking forward to 2016. And here's why. Jim is going to win. Right? Donald Trump he's not necessarily quite as white nationalist as Jim would want. Like if he was picking a candidate for president, it would be him. Right? It would be Jim. He would be the president. But Donald Trump, he's pretty happy about him. And I am unhappy that he is going to live long enough to see Trump get elected and start really flexing those white supremacist muscles that he has had for his whole life. That's going to suck because I really hate to see people like this do touchdown dances, you know? But it is what it is. It's our stupid fucking country. Congratulations to Shad. Do they have a date set for the marriage, or is it sort of sometime in the future?
They control their own money. They control their own country. And it was Germany for the Germans and their posterity. Keep this in mind now.
And their posteriors. That was a dumb joke.
The sacking of Germany after her unconditional surrender will go down in history as one of the most monstrous acts of modern times.
Let's see. Who's Ralph F. Keeling? So we saw this guy, Mike Walsh, who was quoted earlier in this video. And the website he writes for has a Sonnenrad in their header. You can't see it because it's not on that part of the screen isn't on there. But like, here's some of the content that this guy's written. So that's fairly direct, I'd say. Not a lot of reading between the lines you've got to do to figure out what side this guy's on. And his website uses the Nazi font, so again, this is not subtle, right? This is Stormfront, basically, except I don't think it's a message board. Okay, who's Ralph Keeling? Well, can't be this guy. Ralph F. Keeling, Gruesome Harvest. Okay, well, this is Ralph F. Keeling, but he's an oceanographer or something. So this gotta be a Gruesome Harvest. Okay, published in 1947. Boy, this guy is not Ralph Franklin Keeling. This dude doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. I mean, sometimes you just gotta dig. Oof. This feels like a guy. Yeah. Yeah, this feels like a guy with his finger on the scale. because the truth is, after the war, the Germans were not. This will come up a lot, I think, during this video. Yeah, Noonie. I think this is going to come up a lot, but the Germans were not treated with like overwhelming kindness after the war. That's certainly true. Because, you know, the two world wars started by them. And in one of them, they tried to exterminate all of the Polish people and all of the Jews and all of the, non-correctly white Germans. So that sort of behavior would lead people to, maybe not treat you with more generosity than you deserve. But this is like Holocaust revisionism, right? These conspiracy theories are like out there that what the Allies did to the Germans after the war was just as bad as what the Germans were doing, or that there's never been anything worse than that ever done. Like, the Germans actually did okay after the war. It wasn't great. It wasn't a great time to be a German. But for a lot of Germans, it wasn't a great time to be a German during the war, right? It just this idea of like death camps and that's conspiracy. Sort of like FEMA camps.
Its excess beggars description, and its magnitude defy condemnation. This is by Ralph F. Keeling in his...
One of the most monstrous acts of modern times. What would you call the Holocaust? Would he also put that in there with one of the most monstrous acts of modern times? See, I bet he has some opinions.
The Gruesome Harvest of 1947. Ralph Franklin Keeling of the Institute of American Economics didn't mince his words. He said, when we arrived, the Germans were strongly anti-communist.
Read anti-Semitic.
They have since started fleeing our zone in Germany and entering the Russian, where they are welcomed into the Communist Party and even into the Red Army, in whose ranks they may someday be able to get the revenge on us. Mainstream media, the Jew control media.
What do you know? Jews come up again. I'm okay. He's gonna get here. I'm not sure what this last. I've been rereading it. Obviously, the plundered Nazi gold fable. That's not a fable. That's fucking real. There is a tremendous amount of art and gold items, valuables that just kind of turn up in houses in Germany. But neglecting to point out the Germans were denying the plundering victors of German art treasures. So my read on this is the Germans knew that they lost the war. So they were trying to hide the, the treasures, their art or whatever that they thought was important. They were trying to hide that from the Allies so the Allies didn't take it. That is it's ahistorical, obviously, but that is a very generous read on what the Germans were doing with those valuables. It's total bullshit. This is nonsense. But it's an interesting spin. So they were taking it from the houses of the people they had exterminated, not when they seized them and sent them to the camps, but later, when they knew the war was almost over, they were going house to house. They were just protecting They were probably protecting the art for the descendants of the people they sent to the gas chambers. That they probably had a change of heart, you know. Right. Obviously, this is nonsense.
Airbrushes the scale of Allied looting of defeated Germany. The same media daily recycles the plundered Nazi gold fable, neglecting to point out that the Germans were denying the plundering victors of German art treasures. Here I have put some pictures out of the posterity of the German people
Posteriors.
after they reclaimed their banking system and kicked the Jews not only out of governmental positions, but took back their money and spent their money into circulation with no interest.
I mentioned this the last time this video, whatever, Friday, I guess. I do not care about this claim. I'm not even going to investigate it. I just don't care. Maybe they did have the greatest economic system ever invented, but also Nazis. So, also, I know it's not true, right? I do know that it's not true, but I'm not going to chase it down because I do not care.
We'll have a little drink of common sense here today.
Oh, drink of common sense.
We're going to wet our whistle with common sense today.
Common sense. The Nazis were actually just like taking care of people. That was the whole thing they were about.
At the same time that Germany kicked out the Jews from their banking system,
Yeah.
America was in a terrible depression caused by these Jews
No, caused by speculation.
and the Federal Reserve Central Bank.
Also, so the being anti-Federal Reserve, you can be that, like you can take that position and not be a Nazi, but it's all, they think that the Federal Reserve was created by three people, snuck under the, I think they say it was done on like Christmas Eve or something, and there were only 3 votes, and it was engineered by Jews to control the banks. But it wasn't. That's not how it passed. And I've done this multiple times on the channel, but there were like banking crises and collapses and bankruptcies like every 5 years for decades leading up to the passing of the Federal Reserve. There were competing currencies in the country for a long time. Like a centralized banking system allows you to have a country that functions as a country. It wasn't dastardly, but like Ron Paul, right? Ron Paul is big anti-Federal Reserve guy. I actually would probably say that Ron Paul is an anti-Semite because I know some of his content from the 70s and 80s and 90s. But you can have a principled position on the Federal Reserve, I guess, that does not involve anti-Semitic conspiracies, but it's kind of like being strongly anti-communist. If somebody is really against the Federal Reserve, you probably want to dig around a little bit and figure out why they are against the Federal Reserve, right? What are they getting that idea from? That's a tell, right? It's what I would call a tell or a dog whistle, depending on how sneaky they're trying to be.
England was in a terrible depression. France was in a terrible depression. All right. Italy, prior to Mussolini, was in a terrible depression, all created by the Jew moneymongers of that nation and bringing in their illicit satanic, shall we say, devilish things of their homosexuality and their...
Right, the Jews are behind pornography, and they're the only reason anybody's gay. How we have societies where there were man-on-man relationships in places where they didn't have Jewish people. I don't know. I don't know how that happened. It's probably made up. You know, people didn't even have sex until 1968 or whatever, 1969, Summer of Love. This is very tiring to listen to.
Filth among the people. For example, these pictures, and I wanted to bring them in. While the people in the United States were losing their homesteads and losing their farms and ranches, and there were no jobs and breadlines. Same thing was happening in England and in France and everywhere else, all right?
I mean, in this sense, he's correct. The Depression was pretty bad. Pretty bad for a whole lot of people.
Prosperity was a...
I'm gonna say one of the problems might be capitalism. But, you know, that I just tie everything back to capitalism.
Found in Germany. The people, they created their businesses. They had their own clothing industry. Their agriculture was fantastic. They were enjoying life as a people of the German people of Germany, of the royal tribe of the house of Israel, the man.
For example.
Here we have a young woman that was out shopping. All right? This is in Germany. Here we have them looking at different jewelry.
This is hilarious because, like, I mean, again, I don't know what the actual economic situation of Germany in 1934 was or whatever. Whenever he's trying to say this stuff was happening. But no matter where you are, no matter what country you're in, no matter what time you are there, you could take pictures like this. It could be the worst depression in 150 years, right? It could be an active war zone. And you could still take pictures of this because life just continues to happen and there will always be some people with money. Usually that money will be more and more concentrated into fewer and fewer hands. But you can always take pictures of them. Out, like, I am over reading this, like, but this is silly as a justification that what he's saying is meaningful, because just because you have a few pictures of people spending money or at a shop doesn't mean that that was the, like, universal experience in that society. There were plenty of people who still were fine during the Great Depression. There were plenty of people who were fine after the economic crisis in 2008, right? The housing crisis. Plenty of people were fine. It's just that as a society, people weren't fine. At scale, people weren't fine. So I get too irritated by little things.
Dressed very well. These are all
they're dressed very well. I bet they're...
This is a German jewelry store, not a Jew. And down on the lower left, we have a fashion show.
Jesus Christ. This fucking guy.
And down here we have ladies in Germany out buying shoes. These are German women at a German shoe shop. Because
I'm gonna say you could take pictures like this in Manhattan in 1934. And Los Angeles. Probably parts of Chicago. Right? I mean, also you could take pictures like that in London. You know, like...
Germany controlled Germany then, because they control their money under the Third Reich. So you see elegance and class.
Oh, nobody wants Jim back.
In Hitler's Third Reich equaled that of Paris.
The other thing that stinks about this part of Jim is it's much more recent than his, like, 90s content, right? Because the 90s content was what it was. But at least it was a long time ago. We are now within a decade. And He's still talking the same shit. And we remember seeing things change around us at this, right? Because I was alive in the 90s, but I wasn't paying attention to this shit, obviously. I was alive in the 2000s, but I still wasn't paying attention to this. I was playing basketball. But by the time, getting out of college and paying more attention to the world around me, you start to see, especially for me in the church, but also just the viciousness that started to come back. And it stinks that this is the time that we're in now.
They advanced in technology like a rocket shot into the sky. Here we have the bullet train. All these bullet trains and all the advanced submarines after World War II, all the commercial jets and including the fighters, all the air-to-air missiles, all the ground-to-air missiles, most of the new weapon systems that were brought out by England and the United States were all taken from the German patent office.
I mean, Germany did have a good science program, which is why so many former Nazis got to come live in the United States after the war and help us develop our rocket systems. So, I mean, that's true. It's not like they had a monopoly on smart people, but that is undeniable. They were making some progress.
You see, the rush to Berlin wasn't to save the people. It was to take the patent office of all the advanced technology that the Germans were working on so that they would have a great society. They would have advanced weapons to protect themselves against the Jew communists.
They would have advanced weapons to protect themselves against the internal threat. Right? And then Poland wasn't aggressing. What were they protecting themselves from? It's what we call proactive defense. Create an enemy and then decide that they're too dangerous to be allowed to live. And then you are the aggressor, but it's in self-defense, right?
Here we have the bullet train already in the 1930s in Germany. Here we have automobiles, clean cities, prosperity, people buying homes and having homes, raising children, happiness.
Nobody was raising children in America in the 1920s. Or England, I think. They just whole generations with no children. But Germany they were doing children. Both ways.
Here we have a great mall that was built in Germany for the German people by the German people. Here we have roadsters.
I just have such a hard time caring about this. Like, I understand what he's saying. He's like, look how good white people are at building shit. And specifically, the Germans are the best white people. Right? Like, that's his thing. White people are the best, and Germans are the best white people. And look how good the Germans were at building. And, sure. Again, I wouldn't pick Nazis as my example of good architecture, but there was some good architecture, I guess, and there were some smart people doing work. But this is just, I don't care. I know about so many things that were done by so many non-white people that it doesn't really matter to me. It's like, I care about if somebody from my state, right? Because it's nice for my state to be recognized. I don't care who it is or what color or gender they are, but it's cool to be like, oh, Indiana. Somebody from Indiana did something cool. We had some astronauts. That's pretty cool. But beyond that, I I don't have a ton of that like tribalism that Jim is really into. And so this is just like boring. Oh, look at this. It was an American building built by Americans. Look at this. It's a German building built by Germans. It's a French building built by French. Right? French were some of the best engineers in the goddamn world for hundreds of years. That was like one of their major exports was engineers. Okay, great. It's just some societies prioritize some things. And I just don't care that much.
In the great area of the monuments of Germany itself.
Also, what if that mall was built by Armenians, Jim? Are they white enough? Like...
And here we have again great buildings that were conducted in Germany by the German people for the German people. Here we have more pictures. Here
I do like that he says pictures. He says pictures and he says dinosaurs. Both of those are good.
we have trains loaded with people coming
in. That is a bad picture to use. I mean, it's probably not a camp train, but that's what I think of when I think of trains loaded with people in the Third Reich.
Going to work. A great subway system, all right? Here we have indoor pools. Look at the site of this event here, of this massive pools that the Germans could go to and enjoy themselves indoors.
But they're not indoor pools in America? Maybe there weren't. Maybe they invented them. Who cares? Who cares? This country invented indoor pools. Woo! It's not like one of the most important innovations of our last 150 years.
All right. Here we have more German automobiles that were being built in Bonn. Here we have down in the lower right, with a little German boy looking at it, an advanced locomotive for the railroads of Germany. All this tremendous prosperity was going back into the country for the benefit of the German people, for a better way of life. To have something to show for their sweat and toil, instead of being slaves to a Jewish banking system, stealing and ripping and tearing their assets away from them, just as is happening in America.
I'm thinking about this, like blah blah blah, anti-Semitism, etc. But like, what is his solution? Like, the German people were working hard and they were getting back for their blood and toil, whatever the fuck. But like, yeah, also, listen, I know an autistic child when I see one. What is his economic plan? Right? Because not everybody wants to run their own business. And not everybody wants to work hard. There's some younger people in this audience. Mostly older. But yeah, I know that they get, I have like 40 or 50 people in like the bigger meetings sometimes. But yeah, I would bet there's like 10 people, 15 people there, which is still more people than you'd really like. But what is his plan? Like, because my plan would look an awful lot like communism or socialism, where, maybe you nationalize assets, or you have similar to the Alaskan like dividends that they pay people living in Alaska. It's some sort of program like that, right? Where because you live in this country, the resources of this country are your heritage, and the money that is made off of those resources is distributed to people, right? Okay, I'm fine with that. That'd be an interesting way to do things. We certainly have a lot of natural resources, so that could provide does he want to do universal basic income? Something like that. Because obviously he only wants there to be white people But even then, what's his plan economically to make sure that these people? I think here's what it is, and he's stupid for this, but I think his opinion is if we get Jews out of decision making roles, nobody will be exploited anymore, and that's very dumb. But I that's the only thing I can think of. If we get the Jews out, then the system will be fair, and also make sure that everybody has a good living, which is not fair. I mean, it's not fair if some people don't work hard and other people do work hard. But life isn't fair, and I don't really care that much about it. But yeah, I don't know what his plan is. Because capitalism is going to still be capitalism, even if it is run by exclusively white people named Johnson, you know?
Just as happening as in Europe and England today and France and Italy, that's why they're all bankrupt.
Uh-huh.
And just after the war ended,
I love asserting this like massively broad thing that all of these various countries in Europe are bankrupt for the same reason, and they're bankrupt. I enjoy that sweeping statement with zero justification.
in World War II, the Jew bankers went to Eisenhower, that black Jew,
Right.
and I told you my DVD.
One of the funnier claims he's made, I think, that Eisenhower was black.
Where I can authenticate without any doubt that he was part black and he was a Jew. And they begged him to give back the banking structure of Germany to the Jews. And Eisenhower did it. Because Eisenhower, being a black Jew, hated the white Germans and the prosperity.
I do love how he's like, they hate prosperity. That's a common argument on the right, is that the left hates prosperity. But the left is pro-prosperity. It's just a different picture, right? It's not a few people get insanely wealthy beyond any amount of money they would ever possibly need or be able to use in their lives. The left's idea of prosperity is like everybody is able to eat and have a life of dignity because we have enough resources to make that happen. We could just do it. We could just allocate them. But, I hate prosperity. That's what I hate. You know what? And I hate puppies. Prosperity, I hate puppies. I hate, little kids skipping rocks.
So you see the right, the German right, achievements were never met.
Yeah, it's interesting how, listen, I'm sure I'm the first to point out. This has probably never been observed before by anybody. The right has double standards for non-in-group and in-group. And, somebody ought to talk about that. But yeah, it's interesting how I remember, being raised, and not in a mean way. Like, not from my dad, it wasn't mean. From other people, maybe it was a little bit more like cynical. But life's not fair. I've known life's not fair my whole life. That was really drilled into me. And then the right wing loves to complain about how things aren't fair to them. And my opinion is, suck it up. Life's not fair. Right? These are the most life's not fair motherfuckers on the planet, except when it applies to them. And then they're mad that they don't get equal attention and equal airplay and equal prominence in the media. No, you fucking bitches. You don't deserve it. It doesn't have to be fair. It is, in fact, more fair than it should be. because you should be shoved in a corner and like mocked. And yet you get to go on goddamn mainstream TV and tell your lies. But even with that, you're not happy.
For decades afterwards of what they accomplished.
I was listening to Ben Shapiro content recently, and I've really got me amped up again. These fucking morons.
And I'm just touching on the Autobahn. There hasn't been a highway system like the Autobahn built yet in the world. And that was back in the 30s.
The U.S. interstate system's pretty
Here
good.
we have up here a German lady getting a beverage, a beer, a draught, a bitter.
A drought. Listen, I know it's tricky, and I probably didn't realize it until late enough that it's embarrassing. But that's a draft.
Draught. All right? Going and filling up her glass. Here we have a young German girl pushing a doll carriage. Notice how she's dressed. Prosperity was wonderful. The German people took back their country. They took back their money system.
I don't know if they can tell how she's dressed. I can't tell how she's dressed. Maybe the quality in person is better, but she looks like she's wearing something white. That's my best guess.
And they got to buy nice clothes and have nice homes. And they did their pavements and highways and streets and towns and their educational system. They threw all the Jews.
I mean, I guess it's important to remember that none of that was happening in the United States in the 1930s. There were no infrastructure projects at all in the 1930s anywhere in the country. Nobody in the whole country had nice clothes. Everybody had to wear rags. Everybody was eating turnips and chewing on like table legs. Only Germany was having financial success, and it was not propped up in any way.
Books out, the Jew communist professors' books, and they had a night
Gotta do censorship too.
in which they burned all the books. The book burning was
That's
the burning
true.
of the communists and the pornography books in Germany.
I mean, that's kind of true. Certainly, he's coming at it from a different angle than I am, which is that it was fucking horrible. And, you know, non-conforming people are often the first targets because they're the most socially acceptable group to target. And I'm sure that has no modern application. But like, yeah, I mean, that's true. They did do that. But he thinks that, I'm not sure if he thinks Jews invented pornography or just are the only people that like care about it or decided to weaponize it. But porn has been around for a really long time. Like basically all of human history, you know. People like to look at the genitalia of their preferred sexual partners. That's just a thing people have liked doing as long as we have access to cave paintings, you know? Like, it was not a plot. But again, there's so much weird sex stuff on the right and you know, the Bible and stuff. You can have a monogamous relationship long term, totally, you know, you have your kids and consume pornography. That's totally fine. That's pretty common. You can also not consume pornography. And that's also fine. Lots of people don't. But it's just if you think that it's morally wrong to consume it, right? Which I don't know why that it would be. I guess if you look at someone with lust in your heart, I guess that's the thing. But to me, I mean, not to get too saw you at the bar, but I think if partners agree that they can see other people, it's fine. Then it's not cheating. Right? I'm not saying everybody should do that or needs to do that or even that it's good for many people. But if you agree with your partner that that's something that you guys are both fine with, then it's above board, right? I would call that even biblically acceptable. But there are a lot of things that I think are biblically acceptable and important that would get me kicked out of church. So, probably not the best person to ask about these things. I've been talking to Bethany about it. Like, I should be a preacher. I should be a preacher. I'm the son of a preacher. I have a Bible minor, and I know what I'm doing. But I would not last very long at a church. Partly because I don't believe in God, and that would probably come up at some point. But also because I would be expecting things that are in the Bible to matter to the people in the church. And a lot of the time that is unpopular. Like, that's true of preachers who believe in God and just really are convicted that something in the church needs to change. Let alone someone coming from my side of things, which is like, there's a whole lot of shit in there about loving people that are not like you, that are opposed to you, and you're supposed to love them and treat them with kindness. That is not a hallmark of the modern church, I wouldn't say. Modern evangelical movement. I know there are good Christians. Like, I will be careful. I know there are good Christians and even good churches where they really are intentional about not doing harm, right? And being part of the community in a positive way. And I think that's great, right? I think if you read the New Testament and decide that what you need to do is love God and love other people and everybody is your neighbor, then that's great. I'm happy that that is giving you a direction to point your life. But I don't think that's the majority of churches, right? I don't think that was the majority of churches in 2006. Even before we had Trump, even before we had Obama and the backlash happened. But I certainly think it's worse now.
That's why the Jews bewail that night. They bewail it. And all the Jewish teachers of the high schools and elementary schools were kicked out of their jobs because they were communists. Communism is Jewish. I've taught you this many times.
It's funny that I have mentioned a couple times that, like, this is a dog whistle. People that are anti-communist are generally anti-Semitic. But sometimes he doesn't just say it. He's just like, guys, fucking pay attention. Communism is Jewish. I'm not trying to trick you. You should read these things as the same thing. You fucking dolts. That is what he is saying to his audience. It isn't, obviously, but well, unfortunately, the majority of those perceived are what people see. And they're the ones that have the voice of the president. But I agree. I mean, as much as I no longer have any real interest in Christianity, except like academically at this point, it is something that was very much a part of my life, that I know a lot about. And I know a lot of really thoughtful, generous, good people who are part of the church. And so it does bother me when it is improperly characterized. And it bothers me to see the worst possible examples of like people who go to church becoming the public face of what Christianity could be. But Christianity's never been like that. You know. Not since Rome. There's my dad has talked about this, and it is true, right? It's true historically that movements often grow when they're persecuted. And the church in this country, such as it is, right? Christianity, which incorporates whatever people think of as like churchgoers who believe in God. Christianity is the dominant social force. Absolutely. You can talk about liberalism all you want, but this is a very conservative country. And Christians are the majority. You know. So having all the power often is bad for your movement. And yeah, it's I don't know. It was pretty gross to see how thirsty Christians were for overt power in the Trump election, the first one. A man with no scruples and no care for anyone other than himself. Possibly the worst example you could give of someone Christians should emulate. And they flocked to him like goddamn hogs to the trough. Because he offered them power. He offered them access and power. And it's a powerful drug. It stinks. It stinks.
Here we have a vendoring machine. As you can see,
Vendoring.
he's going to buy something through a vendoring machine. And here we have down here an auto mixer down here where they're buying something. The German lady is down here getting something. Germany's standards of living in Hitler's Germany were incomparable elsewhere in the world.
Prove that. This has been my mantra for the last couple of years. Prove it. You know, obviously he can't, and he won't, and he wouldn't. But prove that. That's a pretty big claim. You know, prove it. Nowhere in the world. I mean, what are we talking about? Are we talking about the size of a country? Are we talking about the majority of the population? Because I bet you could find a couple cities that were doing pretty well. You know. Again, just big, broad claims with no backup at all.
And meanwhile, the U.S. suffered because the Jewish-controlled central bank created the Depression in the 20s on the United States, even in England and France. And the people were in despair. They had no jobs. They had no money because the Jews...
Hey, 10 years ago, we had Bob Hope, Johnny Cash, and the other one. And now we've got no Cash, no Hope, and no whoever the third one was. Right, guys?
Made a mistake and they tried to take over every country in the world through their corrupt banking system, which is owned by the Rothschild family, the Jew.
It's really tiring to just listen to him keep attacking Jewish people. Uh, yeah, man. God.
And they're making a move now for it again. But the climate.
This to me actually is similar in impact to the conspiracy that Jewish people didn't get sick when plagues happened, or it didn't affect them as much as it did other people, and that's because they were causing it somehow. Right? That was a common theme throughout the Middle Ages, probably earlier. I know specifically through like 1200s to 1600s, there were repeated annihilations of Jewish communities throughout Europe whenever there would be an outbreak of plague, which there regularly was. Like, they didn't know germ theory, and the plague didn't just happen in 1491, right? I mean, this is obviously, people know this, but like, just to reiterate, this would happen like every 20 years for a while. The plague would happen again, or a different plague would happen. A lot of times they were regional and they didn't spread very far. But what would happen is the plague would break out. People would say, hey, the Jews don't seem to be getting affected the way we are. Let's go kill them. And also expropriate their things. Let's take their gold and their property, whatever. And so they would rampage through the Jewish quarter, killing and looting. And that happened over and over and over and over again. And the people who were leading those charges were Christians. Jim has a quote that he brings up from some Jewish writer talking about how Christians are their like historical enemy. If you were a Jewish person, that would 100% be true. Because the Christians were the people leading the charges against you for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Right? Judeo-Christian is kind of a new concept.
Next to this presentation, not only did they destroy all these wonderful things that the Third Reich and the German people themselves did, now they're coming to destroy you as a people through miscegenation of mongrel invasion of your land. So now
this just brings to mind something that's relevant to you, because Ilhan Omar is from your state. I was listening to Knowledge Fight, an episode they did from December 4th. Alex was talking to Patrick Byrne, who you may or may not recall. I mean, he was fairly prominent in the election denial in 2020. Former CEO of Overstock.com. But, like, I'm not sure if he's... Okay. Well, here, I'm going to... Parting shot here. Alex was talking to this guy, talking horrible shit about Somalian people, obviously, in Minnesota. And he said a phrase that I'm not sure if it's really like if it's like ching chong ching sort of thing, or if it's a real phrase. But he said Durga Durga something. And Patrick Byrne's like, I don't know who that is. Is that a person I should know about? And Alex said it is the name of Ilhan Omar's dildo. And I just almost had to throw my phone across the room. Just unbelievable. Prison is too good for that guy, I gotta say. Yeah, I was like kind of surprised I could still be shocked by that sort of shit, but pretty terrible. Just a hatred that I cannot access. I cannot understand it. She is guilty of coming here as a 10-year-old. Right? She deserves the Congressional Medal of Honor, like, at this point. But Talk to you later. Well, good for your dad. I'm certain she's not perfect, but she seems like a pretty decent politician as far as that goes. All right, maybe another 10 minutes and then I'm going to bed.
We have showing the German people out on resorts enjoying their life. We show them dancing and in areas of dining and dancing. This is all Germany prior to the downfall of World War II. Here they're on a railroad train being served on their
as opposed to the other kind of train.
German trains. Here we have young women out on bicycles exercising, looking very nice, okay? Little people and women out shopping in Germany.
Little people?
The quality of life in the Third Reich was a world best. Why was it a world best? Because they controlled their own destiny.
I seem to recall it not being a world best for the people that were in the ghettos. But they don't count as people to Jim, so.
They control their own money. The Deutsche Bank today is controlled by the Rothschild Jews, run by the Jews. Germany itself is run by that filthy Jew bitch, Merkel. And
he really hates Angela Merkel. I mean, she's a neocon, so I also didn't like her, but he really hates Merkel. Because I think he hates the idea of a woman having power, along with all the other stuff. I think that the fact that it's a woman rankles him.
Juncker, who's second in command, another Jew, permitting the mongrels to come in and destroy Germany and your culture once and for all. Wake up! It's the Jews, stupid!
I mean, listen, you can't say he's not direct.
Wake up! It's the Jews, stupid! Same in America, same in England, Italy, Greece, France, Sweden, Norway, Finland. Wake up, stupid! It's the Jew! The Christ killers! The communists!
Yup.
Here we have more pictures of prosperity. Here is just a store and all the wonderful things that they had. Look at the store full of a product here available. And you know what's interesting? At the same time, the stores, there weren't many stores because they were closed down in the Depression to the U.S. and England. All right? People were coming in because they were making money. The Jew bankers weren't stealing their money.
Prove that.
Shipping, where they're going on trips on ships and everything in Germany.
Again, he's belaboring the point here. But anybody can take propaganda photos. You know, they have these things called Potemkin villages, where they look like nice places and nobody actually lives there. That's been around for a while.
Here on the lower left, we had the little cars again, the people's cars. Not just the Volkswagens, but other models also, where they could go back and forth and go shopping all over Germany. You'll recognize the arc here of Germany, okay?
I don't recognize that, but maybe that's because I'm a Philistine.
Down here we had eating areas of German restaurants outside. All these people were eating, enjoying life in Germany.
There were no outdoor restaurants in America. No outdoor seating. No outdoor seating in France. Right? No outdoor seating in Morocco. This is so boring.
Control their own destiny at that time. And in order to control your own destiny, you must control your own money. Not let the Jew control the money. Remember what Rothschild the Jew said? I care not who makes your laws. Whoever controls your money controls the nation. So here we have the Germans during the Reich. They lived an invaluable life, a wonderful life.
Enviable, Jim. The word is enviable.
Oh, but the Jew couldn't allow that to continue. They had to destroy that because they didn't want the English people to wake up and have a wonderful Britain. They didn't want the French to wake up or anything like that, or anyone else, because they were still subjugating those countries with their tentacles of filth and theft and banking fraud over those people. They didn't want Germany to expand its influence into them countries to relieve the financial burden of debt from the Jew and to have posterity.
I think he means prosperity. He keeps saying posterity. It's not necessarily a totally wrong word, but I do think he means prosperity.
That's why it's very important.
Oh, hey, it's very important.
Germany went into France and took France.
That was
They
totally
also
cool.
returned a lawful money system in France and kicked out the Jew bankers.
Mm-hmm. And the French people loved it.
The main and top general of France turned the entire French military over under the command of the Germans. And this is why when the Americans attacked North Africa, they couldn't understand why they were fighting the French and Germans in North Africa, because the French were with the Germans fighting the Americans. Because the Americans were so stupefied by the control of the propaganda of the newspapers in America, the radio and everything that the Jews controlled, because the Jews bought it all up after the depression they created in America. But
Boy, this is a very elaborate plan, I gotta say.
when they landed on the shores of North Africa, the United States military engaged German and French soldiers fighting alongside each other to stop the United States, the unholy alliance of coming to destroy their countries. See, there's a lot of lies and deceit that you've had to live with.
That's fucking true. There's a lot of lies and deceit I've had to fucking sit through.
And you've been told all your life. The truth is right here, in the name of Yahweh the Christ.
The truth is out there, as David Duchovny would say. I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. And so we're calling it over.